keyboard to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. Connected insights. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream / weekly news show. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay Poss, William Collis, Jimmy Barata, Jeff Cohen. What we do here, guys, is we cover all the news that didn't make it into the podcast, all the important stuff happening this week. These days, it's pretty much all the news because very little news gets into the podcast. But we still dissect, we still analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For all of you guys who are new here, welcome. We encourage you to participate, get involved, ask us questions, challenge us. It's what makes the live stream fun. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys tell your friends about the live stream, your colleagues, your family. The more here, the merrier. We have so much fun doing this with you guys, and we love when you show up. Taylor, welcome. Wanhee, welcome. All of you guys, welcome to the live stream. How is everyone doing this week? Lindsay, you go first. Don't even hesitate.
Yes, finally.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't even let anyone look.
Yeah, nobody. Well, actually, I'm having a good week. It's doing a lot of stuff together. Jimmy and I have been chatting a lot. It's been fun. So it's been a good week. Week 2.
You guys have no idea exciting Lindsay stuff coming. If you just can't get enough of Lindsay, if you're here, and let's face it, like probably 80% of our audience is here for Lindsay. If you're here for Lindsay, there's just so much Lindsay goodness coming soon. And I can't wait to talk about it more.
Can I tell that brief story before I was hired here? And I shared this with Paul Lindsay. I said, I was a fan of the show. I was a fan of the podcast before I ever kind of worked with you guys. And I remember telling Paul, I was like, that Lindsay girl, I think has some really great insight, but she keeps getting dominated by that other guy, that really aggressive guy. Like, I want to hear more what she has to say. He's talking about you, Jeff, juicing all the time and dominating the combo. Yeah. And I was telling Paul, I want more Lindsay.
The juice was loose for a while.
Look at Jeff just taking it on the chin. He's like, you know what? I have insights too.
Sometimes I just get so excited. I do jump in over people, so I apologize.
No need to apologize here. Stuart says, just ask Lindsay first. There you go. We did it this week. Mission accomplished.
Nailed it.
Greg says, hey guys. He says, no, I'm here for Jimmy. There you go.
Hey.
There's that 10%. Robert, hello. Thanks, Robert, Bonnie. Welcome. Everyone else, are you guys everyone here? Just quick question. Start the show. We have so much news. I'm going to tease the podcast. But is everyone here in their New World queue? Like, is everyone queued up so that at the end of the show? So just a public service announcement. If you're watching the live stream, queue up now. You'll be ready to go when the show ends.
We need to have a serious. Are we going to talk about New World on this? Because
we are
about New World. Okay, because there's a lot to talk about New World.
Are you saying that as if we've not covered it in the past?
I think this podcast is going to be at risk, guys, for just turning into New World build guide.
Numbers talk here, guys, and the numbers are big, so we'll get to that. Adam says, long time no chat. Adam says, I'm here for all of you equally. Well, that is Adam, you are a gentleman and a diplomat, and we all appreciate.
Pick a side.
Pick a side.
For all of you equally. Yeah, right.
Let me tease the podcast quickly here. So we had a great guy on the podcast, Kyle Stolick, who's head of marketing at Gamer Sensei. He works at Corsair. So great insight into what Corsair is doing from a marketing perspective. We did spend a lot of time chatting about some of his past. Also, he used to be at Edelman, built a great sort of gaming practice there, and he was at Eidos Montreal. So he was inside a game developer also before that. So really amazing experience all around. Lots of insight into the industry, and highly recommend checking that podcast tomorrow. I will say we also did briefly talk about New World. So that was the one topic that we did get to in any kind of detail. And it was this article that I brought up, which you guys, I think, will enjoy. This was the article that prompted the New World conversation on the podcast. And that is Amazon's New World MMO won't let you name yourself Jeff Bezos. This is the important New World news that we discussed on the podcast. Hard hitting gaming industry news.
I mean, to your credit, I mean, if you're building a game, I mean, why not? Honestly, I would have gone the other route. I would have gone it like, if you named yourself Jeff Bezos, you got plus 10 attribute points. I would have been more self-promotional.
Like minus 10 if you named yourself Tim Cook.
Well, did you see the other piece of news that Elon Musk is, I think, sending Jeff Bezos a number 2 trophy because he surpassed him in highest net worth individual? A number 2 and a silver medal. I thought that was gutsy. Could have hit
gutsy.
Back in New World, Jeff. I'm just saying.
So guys, look. Sean says, "Hey, Sean," and Stuart says, "Or Amazon." Believe it or not, I saw another article talking about how there are names that are being allowed that are extremely offensive. So the fact that Jeff Bezos was disallowed says a little bit something. But no,
I find Jeff Bezos extremely offensive. So.
Well, you can't use the name, so that works.
Can I use Beth Jesus?
That would be a name that you would see. No, guys, I guess, look, we can start off talking about New World. It's the big news this week. No, we might as well kick off the show.
No, it's not the big news this week. Diablo 2 relaunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
everyone's talking about that. But no, just to give some context, and there's a million articles, so I'm not going to pull up anything specific here, but just to give you guys some context. From what I've seen as of today, New World peaked at about 800,000 or 900,000 concurrents. Wow. And supposedly there are almost 9 million copies sold. At least $49.99 a pop. I think the deluxe is $59.99 or $69.99 if I remember correctly. So pretty huge numbers. We're talking about launch day. I'm curious, and this is the question I asked on the podcast, so you guys will have to tune in there to hear what our guests thought. But has anyone changed their mind from the previous discussion we had around New World? Do these numbers sway anyone? Does anyone think WoW is in more trouble than you previously thought?
Not since our last discussion. I mean, these numbers, if we had this discussion when, what was the last Amazon game that completely
Crucible.
tanked? And then Crucible, where it was so bad that they literally put it back into beta, basically, which is unheard of. If we had this discussion then I would be shocked. But I think as of a few months ago, we knew that this game was going to do well on launch day, and the buzz around it was pretty strong. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are kind of bearing out as they are. In terms of what this means versus WoW and for Amazon game development in general, clearly it's a positive step forward for Amazon, the fact that they have made a hit game now. But the big question for how it competes against WoW and just how this game evolves is what they're going to do with the roadmap, what they're going to do with live content. We all know, MMOs aren't built in a day. What's there at launch needs to be radically different than what's there a year, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years down the road to have the kind of longevity that something like WoW has had. So I think there is a lot that remains to be seen with how they execute on the live service of this game, but it's a great start.
Is anyone swayed by the fact that, and this was interesting to me at least, they paid no streamers on launch day to play the game. They paid no influencers on launch day to play the game. They gave no priority queue to any streamer or influencer on launch day. In other words, Asmongold sat in his stream for like 4 hours in queue. Is anyone like, what is your thought on that? Does anyone have thoughts? That's a good thing. That's a bad thing. They made a mistake. They missed an opportunity.
I mean, I have a few thoughts. I have one thought, which is like, I think it's sensible. You don't need to pay people to do something they're already going to do. The game was already popular. The sort of people who are going to stream this were already going to stream it on launch day, right? Why? You know what I mean? Why would you pay? So I think that's smart. And I think, by the way, this is becoming more standard practice marketing for big major release games, particularly games that have a buzz around them, and particularly games that have sort of like, there's a freshness to them. In this case, it's a new IP, which is why it's fresh. I think like it's just now publishers are realizing, okay, well, there's going to be content around it in the first couple weeks anyway. We don't really. So that part is the not priority queue thing is just weird to me, though, because that's not, I'm sorry, that's not even like, that's not you paying money. That's just like helping more people see and experience the game. And as maybe it has an effect of making your game look popular because Asmongold has to sit in a 4-hour queue. I think more realistically, you're doing people a disservice, because if I'm stuck in a 4-hour queue, I'd at least like to watch Asmongold play the game as opposed to also watching him stuck in a 4-hour queue. I think that is a little bit extreme and makes me seem more like just less familiar with game launch protocols. But overall, I mean, like whatever, you can't fault these guys. They got if it's true, they have 9 million sales and 800,000 on a concurrence. I mean, those are just incredible numbers to be launching with. And, in my mind, the question is not WoW, it's actually Final Fantasy 14, right? Which is really, I think, benefited recently from, I think, a general slack in the MMO genre and what's going to happen to that now. Because this is, I mean, it's, if the content is there to sustain, which, as Jeff correctly points out, is a major if, right? There's a big difference between making a game that has 3 weeks worth of content and 3 years worth of content or 30 years worth of content, particularly when the gamers you're serving an MMO will blast through 80 hours of content without batting an eye. That's like the amuse-bouche, for them. But if there is a sustained content model there, they have a player base that's significant, and the MMOs are network effects driven. So they have the starting of a network effects model to leverage here.
Jimmy, Lindsay, I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts.
Lindsay,
I'm surprised no one thinks WoW is in trouble.
Maybe we just want to play the other side because we know that that's your opinion.
Everyone's well, Lindsay, you go, but I want to jump in.
It's a debate show.
Yeah, Jimmy, go, Jimmy.
All right. Well, I think everyone, like to William's point, I think everyone's in trouble. I was really fed up with Call of Duty. I hopped into Apex for a little bit because it was fun. It held me over, but I'm also kind of tired of FPS games and wanted something different. So I don't think it's necessarily just a WoW killer with such a strong start. Like, yeah, no joke, I am in queue right now for 85. I was hoping to grind a little bit, do right before or after dinner. I think everyone's in trouble. This is a really hot, popular game. To William's point, if you're going to play it already, you don't need to pay other people to play it, right? Like, if they're going to hop in, and you'll get those big names, those big influencers supporting your title regardless. I think in a month, to Jeff's point, right? This is something that lives and breathes and grows over time. So if they're properly supporting their game, and if it already has this massive start that it has and this hype, then hey, I don't see anything but blue skies for this title. And yes, WoW's in trouble. Everyone's in trouble. This is it.
The bigger trend here a little bit is, are we seeing some sort of franchise fatigue in the industry? Because it seems like every genre is being dominated by, or the news in every genre is a new IP, right? Whether it's Splitgate for FPS or, now this for MMO, right? I think of other examples. Like I wonder if it is it getting the press because it's new IP, and so we don't expect it to do well. So like, because the flip side is, if there was a note, Call of Duty sells 9 million copies, we'd all be like, oh, whatever, like what?
But William,
Right.
you've said it a million times before. The MMO genre is the toughest genre to break into. That's, I think, why this is worthy of discussion.
It's not hard to get tourism in. That was the term that was popular in the MMO wars, right? It's very easy, or not very easy, but I should say many MMOs had high trial against World of Warcraft, whether it was the Warhammer Online game. I mean, I can't even list them all. They're like EverQuest 2, like many MMOs got high trial. The challenge was sustaining the user base and the population base, because the issue was, well, people would log in and experiment it. They ended up being faced with, like, anyone can try anything for 10 hours and have fun and see something new. But when they're making MMOs, are like a lifestyle. Honestly, they're like a commitment. It's like choosing to date someone. I feel like when you're playing an MMO, it's that level of like, do I want to spend the next year to 2 years of my life? And when you face the choice of giving up everything you built in your prior relationship with WoW or, Final Fantasy 14 or whatever, and having to start from scratch and build everything new, a lot of people are pulled. There's a real gravitational pull that pulls you back, among other reasons why MMOs are difficult to hold users, including just lack of content, as Jeff correctly points out.
I think it'll be interesting to see, again, like not even just how the player base maintains itself, right? And we are kind of in this little bit of a dearth in the industry where we're sort of a few weeks or even a couple months away from really getting some new content, like new Call of Duty, Halo, Battlefield. I know those aren't maybe exact competitors to New World, but it'll be interesting to see how the player base maintains. If in November we're still talking about 1 million people a day playing New World and the content's great, I'll be very impressed. I suspect the conversation in November will be, well, what happened to New World? Amazon hasn't put out a roadmap. There's no content. All the players are gone. Like, wow, how did Amazon screw this up? I would bet on that versus the other, but we shall see.
Honest?
Probably going to lose your money on that bet. I think fundamentally a lot of people, and this is just the nature of the industry, there's a lot of interesting business people with opinions. There's a lot of interesting gamers with opinions, but there's very few at the intersection. And I think New World is fundamentally quite different from WoW, and the kind of grind involved, I think, is going to hook people much longer.
Can you say more about that, Paul? Like, I'm just curious, why do you think the gameplay is different, and why is the nature of the grind different?
Well, PvP being such an integral part of it also just has more longevity naturally, right? Like PvE content has an end, right? You do the raid, you kill the boss, sort of mission accomplished. PvP content, good PvP content, especially where there's territory involved and factions and control, those things can shift and balance of power can shift. And so people stay committed to those PvP kind of grinds much longer. So I think primarily it's that. I also think a lot of New World, it's remarkably difficult to make progress compared to WoW. So WoW, you can fly from 0 to 60 in a day or two, literally, if you really are good at the game. New World has a lot of other things, other pieces, like a ton of crafting, a ton of harvesting of materials, a lot of other associated grinds, and the pace is quite slow.
You never ground enchant in World of Warcraft, Paul. That was a bit of a grind. But no, but like I could take those points and flip them, and I'm not saying I believe this, but I could say New World will have trouble sustaining players because it doesn't have a good reward mechanism, because the advancement is too slow. And PvP is going to do what PvP often does in these games, particularly games where it's a combination of skill and equipment, which is the classic MMO thing, where a bunch of more dedicated players are going to get out ahead, capture everything, exploit the new people and basically farm them. They can't get an edge. And the vast majority of players who aren't in the leading 5% are going to quit out of frustration, which is a very real problem that has dogged other PvP intensive. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I could say those game design decisions might cut the other way here.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen such. And look, I think the other piece of it is this was maybe, I will say, the best game launch easily in the last 5 years, maybe 10. And
Wait, why?
And I just want to bring like this up, like this. I just want to share something here. Like I see posts like this, right? And it says, I'll just read it. If New World, the MMO from the company that owns most of the servers that host the internet, has login queues, I think we could probably dismiss the idea that this problem is avoidable for other devs. Like this, to me, this person fundamentally doesn't have any clue what they're talking about. Like login queues are because everyone wanted to play on the same server, right? Not because Amazon had issues with their servers. And a lot of that was driven by the influencers. I just think from a smooth game launch perspective, almost no bugs, almost no crashes, right? No one complaining about, content that didn't work or spawns that didn't work, or the very, very few problems in a genre that is almost impossible to be this problem free. I mean, MMOs are just really tough games to get right at that scale.
To piggyback off that point, in fact, what you saw was Amazon quickly addressing that problem. They came out with 28 more worlds yesterday just in NA East because of all the people that wanted to hop on that one server with their favorite streamer. And they said, hey, play with your friends on one of these other worlds. We have as many as you can think of.
And for 2 weeks, you can switch servers. So in other words, you can level your account on an empty server, and then if in 2 weeks you want to change to a busier one, you can. I think part of it is just it's happening in this room. For some reason, people are defensive around WoW, and I don't get it. Like everyone thinks WoW can't be killed, and I think you guys are just so wrong. And look, coming from the guy who's played more WoW than all of you combined.
Yeah, no, nobody thinks WoW can't be
just
killed.
To give Jeff Grubb like a.
Jeff Grubb's clueless, unfortunately.
No, I was to give him credit. I mean, I don't think his comment was meant to be disparaging to New World actually at all. I think it was to be disparaging to the games press that always writes this article about, hey, every launch being rocky. I think it was more that than complaining about New World. That's how
he's saying. If Amazon can't figure out servers, like, let's not blame other devs. But Amazon did figure out
exactly.
servers.
Yeah, like we shouldn't.
Well, no, he's wrong. We should blame devs if they can't get their servers right. My point is, Amazon and New World did get their servers right.
This is a separate discussion, but I'm not entirely sure that's what's going on here. Like, it probably is, but I think a lot of the server issues are a little bit like the console shortage at launch, where, yeah, part of it is they genuinely have difficulty making production. But part of it is they know it's good to launch with short supply to give a sense of exclusivity and hype and popularity around the product. Like, the best way to give people a sense that something is popular is to tell them you can't log in because too many people are trying to play it, So I also think some of the server issues, I'm not saying it's intentional. I don't think developers necessarily want server issues on launch day, but I definitely think it's not the problem that people perceive it as, because it has it actually has a lot of value and function in the industry, even if it's not fun if you're caught by it.
Well,
and by the way,
it was as simple as like a utilization thing where you plan, like, obviously Amazon owns a lot of these servers, so that was his point of, like, they should be able to plan for it. But, like, I thought it was as simple as, hey, if you think on day one you're going to have 5 million people, and then you will literally never have 5 million people in your servers ever again, it makes no sense to plan for 5 million people. You would plan for your sort of like lowest.
That wasn't the issue. That wasn't the issue. The issue is fundamentally the way the game was designed. Each server can have no more than 2,000 players at any moment, right? And there's reasons for it. This is not WoW. The combat's real time, right? And so to have a game engine that can manage real-time combat across thousands of players is not insignificant, right? And so each server is limited to a couple thousand players. So if you want to play on the same server as Asmongold, you're going to have a queue, a lineup to get in there, right? If only 2,000 can be in at the same time. But there were 10 other servers that were empty. right? Like, so it's not like there weren't
more and more
servers.
like they should have done special queues for streamers to split them out across the servers. So I'm just saying, like, alleviate the load. Anyway.
I think the real issue here is that Paul read way too much into this Jeff guy's little silly tweet.
Yeah,
I don't like people spreading misinformation, right? It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
I'd like to point out Diablo 2 Resurrected also had server issues on launch day.
Yeah.
So
and that's a tough game to run.
It was the funniest thing because I was in the group, you're in the group chats and people are like really replicating the 1990s experience. And I was like,
I'm going to read these comments and then we're going to move on here. JP says, yo, Jimmy. Wani says, I totally agree with Jeff. MMO is more of a service rather than a product. Definitely. You need to keep the content fresh, but I think it's going to take longer for people to get through the content. And I will tell one anecdote. I was watching Shroud play New World, and Jeff, this was to your point about other games coming out. He said if Battlefield, and this is maybe the top shooter streamer in the planet, right? Like there's no bigger FPS guy than Shroud. He said if Battlefield's beta comes out while he's playing New World for the next, at least he says he's going to grind it on his stream for the next few weeks at least and play nothing else. He says if in the next 2 weeks Battlefield's beta comes out, he's not even going to play it. Like actually won't even play it on his stream. Which,
that's just him trying to get paid by yo. I'm not going to play it.
That's a great point.
But I could.
It's true.
I think this is a freebie here.
Yeah. That is true.
Clip it and send it to your marketing.
That's called
department.
negotiate. That's called negotiating, Paul.
Yeah,
one, he says, please don't forget Black Desert. One, I love you, but BDO has no future, unfortunately. Sean says, has to be because it was people's first MMO. That is interesting. I do think that is a very insightful comment. I think there's a lot, because anecdotally, I know a lot of the people in the Discord servers that I'm in, New World is their first MMO. And so they have really no frame of comparison. And I think that's interesting that it's bringing new people to the genre.
That's the piece that makes me think New World can stick, because the issue with MMOs is switching. If it's a new consumer who has no baggage, you're totally different game. So for New World's sake, I hope that's the case. Because if they really got 9 million people who never played an MMO before to play this, that is an excellent sign for them, because then they don't have the problem that's dogged everybody else historically.
Yeah. Wani says fake news. I assume you're referring to the Shroud thing. And Adam says, Wani beat me to it. Yeah, it could be just him angling for a paycheck, which would be quite clever of him if that was the case.
Well, think about it, he wasn't paid to stream New World. He's probably keenly aware of needing to remind people.
That to me was the most interesting part of this whole thing, and I know we just scratched the surface of it, but I want to move on. It's just one of those things where I thought Apex changed the game, right? Where you had to pay a zillion influencers on launch day, and just everyone decided that was going to be the industry standard.
Apex did change the game, because remember, Apex had a very clever launch strategy. They did no pre-hype. So they had to pay people because they didn't have the guaranteed. So I still think the Apex launch model is a great launch model, and many publishers should consider doing it. It just has a different toolkit. And in that case, it does require paid streamers because you're launching out of a vacuum.
Can I throw a wrench in here for you guys to consider and contrast? What about Valorant with the stream keys? I mean, that launch was brilliant, I thought, right? Like, I mean, I'm curious, William's take, Paul's take. This is it's very different than these two ones that we're talking about right now, right? One of them seems to be purely organic, a lot of hype. Other one, paid hype influencers. Valorant was like, hey, you can play, but you have to watch someone else play for like 6 hours.
Bluntly, I think Valorant is the best. I mean, I'm sorry. I think Riot Games does, very clever marketing often. And I think that model is good for so many reasons, right down to load balancing, right, like down to anticipation, right down to consumer psychology. It's requiring an investment on your part. I mean, if I could pick any of them, I'd pick the Valorant. I always think the Valorant model is the hardest to execute, and it only works if you're a company who has the scale and reach to drive that sort of streaming audience. Because if it were, Indie Dev 5000 with that business, it's really one of those examples where, only giants can battle here, right? Like, but I agree. I think that's my favorite. I'd like to see more publishers play that.
Do you think maybe
I hate the drop model.
Amazon may have blown the Crucible launch just so they could build hype for the New World launch.
That's it.
Yeah.
Build a game.
That's what
Sink
I
it.
was originally going to say for a while, was that they probably didn't pay anyone just out of the risk that because Crucible did so poorly, why pay a bunch of streamers to have them stream it and then just have them sit on a stream and totally complain about how terrible it is.
But they knew this game was going to be good, right?
Yeah,
they
it's
knew.
still just risk aversion. And the other thing is that I was going to say to William's point is there's a lot more kind of competition in a much different audience in the shooter space. So for a drop like Valorant, it's going to be much different. People in the MMO space, first of all, it's a much tighter competition. There's basically 2 other games that streamers are playing, not 50. So they don't have to do as much of the paid streaming just because a new MMO is exciting all on its own. And the genre is so tight. And the fans are really dedicated. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think Call of Duty fans are dedicated to every drop of every new shooter game in the same way. So Valorant had to take a different strategy just because it's a different game. And I think that strategy was really successful. But I think it was smart of Amazon to kind of minimize the risk of, for whatever reason, a very poor drop. Like, who knows? And not pay anyone, especially since they already knew that people would be playing it anyway. What's the point?
I'll just give my 2 cents on this. I hated the Valorant key drop thing. I hate all Twitch drop things. I just think it's such an artificial, like, bogus way of generating views. I don't think it actually creates genuine interest. Like, I know myself, I get all these drops, every single one of them. You know how I get it? That machine back there has that Twitch stream, open and minimized. Like, it's the equivalent of a YouTube pre-roll ad, right? They like to tell the advertiser, 50 million people saw your ad. Yeah, 50 million people press skip the second they could. That's the equivalent of Twitch drop. And I think these drop mechanics go away because eventually advertisers get savvy and realize the numbers are fake. The numbers are not real fundamentally.
You don't like being I disagree, but that's a separate conversation to have. I think the drop stuff is really smart because I think you're focused on an unintended consequence of drops, which is people farm them, right? And that's definitely true that the numbers are inflated because people are tuning in just so they can get the 6-hour drop and move on, right? Mm-hmm. I think there is a genuine let me put the piece of the pie here out there. There's people who have no interest in the game who are really the people who farm the drops, right? There's people who are going to play it anyway, for whom this is maybe a barrier, but it's fine because they're hyped for the game anyway. And then there's people on the fence in the middle. And I think for those people, for that liminal group, the drop strategy is extremely effective because they are interested, they will watch, it will pique interest, and they will be given a digital item that they will value because they've invested time to transition them into the game.
Yeah, for me, the numbers are what bother me. It's, you take a guy like Shroud, he gets maybe 25,000 viewers, on an average stream. Mm-hmm. If I'm an advertiser paying to advertise on on Shroud's stream, and all of a sudden he has New World drops and 160,000 people show up, and now I'm paying for 160,000 eyeballs for that stream, I don't think I'm getting my money's worth, frankly. I think I'm getting swindled.
That's a fair point, that the individual streamers, it's very artificial boosting for them. That's fair.
But then you could argue Twitch is artificially boosting across the whole platform and basically lying to advertisers, right? It's fake. It's not organic viewership. It's not viewership that you can guarantee in any way is engaged. Most people, I think, are there just for the drop, and that becomes the problem. Let's move on, guys. There's a whole bunch of other things here. One, he says $1 million to Ninja was just sensational, I think. True. It made good press, and we're still talking about it. And Six Cannon says, maybe on day one, people were watching the streams for as long enough to unlock at least a few drops. The queue to get into the more popular servers was 8 hours long. Yeah. And I guess getting the drop was one nice thing of waiting. One, he says, well, I tuned into some Just Talk female streamers to get the free Chipotle burrito, but now I'm following her. Well, so I guess, there is an argument there.
It works.
There's definitely an argument there. We'll see how long that lasts if there's no more free burritos on that channel. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's talk about Nintendo quickly. There was a fun story or fun announcement this week, Nintendo Direct. And the headline here, Nintendo Direct surprises everyone with Mario movie cast new Kirby game. Although gamers came to see Kirby in the Forgotten Land and Bayonetta 3, Nintendo threw everyone a curveball with Chris Pratt as Mario in the upcoming film. So that was I feel like it was memed for at least 2 or 3 days after, right? This is all everyone could talk about was the cast of the new Mario movie. 2 questions here. I know there were rumors that they were doing a Mario movie, so I don't think that was totally surprising to everyone. But who's like in the I love this camp and who's in the this is an extension of Nintendo that Nintendo should be staying away from and should have learned their lesson with the first Mario movie?
What's wrong with the first Mario movie? Whoa there. Whoa. What? I was like 8 when that came out. I love that movie. I'll say one, a couple of these I didn't care for. One thing that I thought was a perfect fit, and that's Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I think his voice is awesome.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows that giggle. I think it fits really well with Donkey Kong for some reason. In my head, I'm just like, yes. He was great as Pumbaa, right, in the Lion King remake. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if Chris Pratt can carry Mario. I don't know if he has that kind of depth. I like him. I like him in Guardians of the Galaxy in particular. I liked him when he was on Parks and Rec. I don't know if this is his role, and that's a big role to screw up on.
Is anyone surprised that Nintendo, traditional Japanese company, picked such like Hollywood A-list for this movie?
This is what I wanted.
That's
I'm sorry, I can't keep quiet. This is what they should have been doing all along. Like, literally, it's an entertainment strategy. And you know what? Yeah, does Chris Pratt feel a bit like odd casting to me? Yeah, it does feel a bit like, who cares? Because there were 0 Mario movies before, and now there is a AAA Mario movie coming. And you know what? Chris Pratt's, last I checked, he's a pretty big celebrity. He's a pretty funny guy. Give him the benefit of the doubt, When I heard Benedict Cumberbatch was cast as Smaug in The Hobbit, I thought, I don't know where that's going to go. And he did a great job, Give these guys, this is just, the bigger thing is directionally, this is what Nintendo needs to do. You can fault them for execution all you want. But at the end of the day, I'm not even sure you can fault them because the fact that they're getting memed about all of this is just great pre-marketing for the Mario movie.
It's true.
Yeah.
What am I missing here on Chris Pratt? Like, the dude's carried like Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic Park.
I have nothing against
how much
Chris
bigger
Pratt.
of a franchise does it get than Jurassic Park?
I have nothing against Chris Pratt other than I don't know what his Italian accent sounds like.
Right. I just don't think of Mario as the same guy who was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Although I think I saw
it
the picture of the guy who did the Mario voice for the games originally, like it's a me, like that guy. And I don't think he's even Italian. So like, I don't think that that accent was terribly authentic to begin with. I mean, Jimmy Barada would maybe have a viewpoint on this, but
Okay. My meatball. I do like Charlie Day. So, speaking of non-Italians, I do like Charlie Day for Luigi. I'm a big Always Sunny fan. Horrible Bosses. He was so funny. He's been in a lot of stuff now, right? Like he's really mainstream.
Let me ask the business question here. Is anyone surprised that the Mario movie completely overshadowed every single game that they announced? Like literally, I don't think anyone even remembers what games they announced. And I don't think anyone even talked about it. Lindsay, sorry, go ahead.
No, because they also announced, or I'm not sure if this was, I don't know, they just updated the Nintendo Game Pass to include like all of the old N64. They just released new controllers for the Switch.
That's
like,
true.
You could buy
no one even
from
talked
N64.
about it.
I know, yeah. And it's just like, we're all talking about this movie, which is fine. William, you're totally right. I think everyone's been waiting for a movie. I'm going to be a believer, I think, when I see it. I wasn't like super excited about the cast, but it is obviously an A-list cast, which is great, and we'll see where it goes. But they made a lot of other like big announcements too. And usually the Nintendo universe is so excited. Like I immediately wanted to buy some of the Switch controllers, like the wireless, the new like N64. I don't know. I was really excited about that, and like everyone just kept talking about the movie.
Do some
Jeff,
chat.
sorry, I cut you off
good chat
earlier.
Comments. I think we have some good chat comments. Do some chat if we.
Chat likes this for sure.
Yeah.
Bodrich says, "Hey, Bodrich, welcome back. Love it. Closer to becoming Disney. I think that's.
Absolutely.
I think this is why William loves it. Also, one he says, as a PR person in the gaming industry, I want to see Chris Pratt in Nintendo World in Japan. Well, I mean, he's going to be there, right? It's coming. Stuart says the cast is awesome. I think that everyone sort of was very excited about it. Matt says there's nothing wrong with Chris Pratt. I just would have gone with somebody Italian or the original guy, as would have most people, I think. Is anyone going to be upset if he doesn't capture the, like, you know, the it's a me,
yeah.
you know, like if he doesn't get that right.
Yeah.
You got to get Mario's one line. Like, one thing he has to say right.
Robert says Mario's from Brooklyn. Will Chris do an Italian accent or not? This is what I don't know. And if he does, will people complain because he's not?
That's what they did in the first one, right? They went heavy on the Brooklyn side of it, and I thought it worked really well. You know, both of those. Was it? I can't even remember the actors. I have to pull them up. They did the Brooklyn accents.
And you thought it went well.
Stuart says it was a good update, better than OLED. Well, that's true, but that was kind of a low bar.
You're cracking me up here, Jimmy. You're like a legend in a bottle.
All right, guys, let's keep this moving here because we have a lot of other stories to get through. I want to talk about Fortnite, Apple, Epic, because there's been a development in that story, and I think it's an important one.
Let's do it.
And the headline here is Fortnite blacklisted by Apple, Epic Games CEO says. So Apple could keep Fortnite off Mac and iOS for 5 years. Basically, so following the ruling that we had discussed previously on the live stream where, you know, it was kind of a minor win for Epic, sort of, where Apple had to, allow for alternative payment methods for apps on the App Store. Now, basically, Apple has decided that they're just going to blacklist Fortnite from their ecosystem. And so you still won't be able to use or download or play Fortnite on iOS devices. And Tim Sweeney, at least, is saying that this could keep the game off the platform for at least 5 years, which, let's face it, is probably end of life for Fortnite. Curious what you guys make of this. Any thoughts on this development? Who loves it as much as I do?
Yeah, I would love to take this one because when this ruling initially came down and everyone was talking about the payment system thing, the first thing I read that stuck out is the judge ruling that Apple's App Store is not an antitrust violation, which meant that they could keep their closed garden model. And that was the first thing I said was this is a way bigger deal than the payments thing. And everyone got so caught up in the payments thing, but this is the first example of why that's a huge deal because the judge said you can do what you want. This is not an antitrust violation for you to run your platform like this. And they are doing what they want. And it is not a violation of anything for them to run their platform like that as it was ruled. So already that ruling, which everyone was so excited for Epic about, is already coming back to kind of bite them in the butt.
It feels very petty to me. And it also feels like something that could actually end up coming back to haunt them in future rulings, right? It's like a really good way to show that you're not a monopoly is to act like a monopoly. Like to me, it just seems very odd where you're trying to be, oh no, we're actually not evil. Our 30% is justified. We're not the big bad monopoly. But yeah, you can't play in our walled garden that we've constructed that you need to get in order to access our users. Like, to me, that's a really bad strategy.
It's not a walled garden. Buy a different phone. Or it's not a monopoly.
Yeah.
Again, all I'm saying is it feels like a very bad strategy when you've effectively won the case. At least that's what we're saying. Yeah. And then your first move is to punch down and hurt the person. Like it's very petty and vindictive.
It's optics. The optics.
It's not good to me.
Yeah.
Let me back Jeff because I think Jeff and I are actually in agreement here, right? I think they won, right? Let's start with that. They won. And I think what Fortnite has gone through, like the point has been made. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a long line out the door for people ready to challenge Apple after that experience, right? I think the risk for Apple is this is just one ruling, right? And now they're taking an action that seems you might say that maybe could be argued to be anti-competitive in a future context, right? It feels an unnecessary risk to take. Like, these guys have already been punished. Why do you need to punish them more? And I get it. I get that they really want to protect the sanctity of that business model because it's the core of what Apple is building. But I think paradoxically, by overprotecting it, you create liabilities in future.
This is how you I totally disagree with you guys, right? Like, they didn't pick this fight. This fight was picked with them. And I think Apple is sending a clear message. And this is the beauty of this, right? Which is, you mess with us, we will bury you. And what are the chances you think another developer takes on Apple over the App Store? Zero at this point.
The problem is
Zero.
What's going to happen is this is fodder for the politicians, the legislators, the lawmakers.
Who?
What do you mean who?
Why would they look at this and care that Fortnite is not on the App Store?
Because it shows exactly that they're the bully. This war. Number one, I would push back a little bit on that. Apple completely want to slam dunk, right? The fact that you now can push people to third-party payments is a massive win for the mobile ecosystem.
No one's going to use it. No one's going to use it. I'm telling you.
There will be big publishers will absolutely use it. I think it will be. It is a big win for the ecosystem, if not for Epic. Clearly, Epic seems to be the one that had to fall on their sword. Epic has objectively lost here. I think it's still a big move for the mobile ecosystem and a pretty decent sized blow potentially for Apple. But I think Apple was never going to lose this case. I think what Epic was always playing to was the court of public opinion, right? Like, they were always making this, hey, we're the little guy, Apple's the monopolist, Apple's screwing us. And I think Apple is playing directly into that PR strategy, which has the potential to be really dangerous when you have politicians in the US that love bashing big tech companies, and they get a lot of points from their constituents from, how many young people that are voters like Fortnite. Hey, Apple's bashing Fortnite, Apple's hurting Fortnite. This is something where a politician can score points by hurting big tech who's acting like a monopoly. And you may disagree, but I guarantee you that's the next shoe that's dropping here, is that you're going to see politicians, speaking up about this and how Apple's at. It's just an unforced error, in my opinion. Apple didn't have to do this. It's very petty and vindictive, in my opinion. And it has the potential to open a big flank where they could lose the court of public opinion here by acting like a monopolist.
Jimmy, you were going to say something.
I got so much to say, but I also want to move it along. I get the optics of it, Jeff, and I think the public policy side of things better than I do. On the legal side of things, the biggest winner are the legal teams on both sides, right? They both got conceivable wins for their own side, small wins that each side could be somewhat proud about, or to phrase in a way that they think is helpful. Court of public opinion, Epic already launched their smear campaign. They did the whole 1984 reboot, and the merch fell flat, and it didn't. I thought it was brilliant, but it didn't work, and I was a big fan of it. But that's because I like Fortnite then. It really didn't work. Epic got completely embarrassed in this whole process. All their finances, right, all this stuff that came out, just for a win that we'll see if it gets used or not. Whether or not that's a win is to be determined. Like, to Lindsay's point, Apple really dodged a bullet here on I think the real points at issue. The lawyers on both sides are kind of bragging wins. I get what you mean about the optics, like, I really do, and I don't disagree with you. But to Apple's point, if they already won what really mattered, why would they cave on anything else? Like, the appeal process can go for another 5 years, so they're going to flex for another 5 years because they can. I don't see that changing the opinion of them any more than the underlying suit did, I guess, is my point.
I just want to read a statement from Amy Klobuchar, chairwoman of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Competition Policy, Antitrust, and Consumer Rights. She said, this ruling reaffirms what we heard in our Senate hearing last spring. App stores raise serious competition concerns. While the ruling addresses some of these concerns, much more must be done. We need to pass federal legislation on App Store conduct to protect consumers and promote competition. If you don't think that there's going to be another shoe to drop and she's not going to love the fact that Apple's throwing chum in the water that she can eat up, I'm just saying, if you're Apple, why do this?
How many monopolies have been broken up since Standard Oil? How many?
Microsoft.
Microsoft was not broken up.
They went through a whole decade of antitrust, and it really hurt them. Look
Yeah, and they were fine.
Let me look what's on the screen. Okay, number one, world's most admired company. What is number one? What is number one? It's Apple. No one is gonna care what a few whiny Fortnite players think about Apple. The people deep down love the closed ecosystem. It's what makes Apple great. It's what makes their products great. No one's getting rid of that. No one's breaking it up. Politicians can talk all they want. It's impossible to actually make happen. Like this, here's the first rule of business that Tim Sweeney broke. And for all his billions, he's kind of stupid from a business standpoint. Like he may be a great programmer, but he's not a smart businessman. You don't pick a fight that you don't know for sure you can win. And he picked a fight that there was a very high chance of losing, and he has lost big, right? Apple's not going to care, but this could be truly the end of Fortnite, right? Fortnite will have some legs, but I don't think it will have nearly the longevity it may have had without iOS and the App Store. And he lost, plain and simple. I called it. I said he was going to lose big. He lost big. I don't think there's any coming back from this. And I'm curious what you guys in the chat think. I'll just read some of these comments. Ramsey says, really wondering what he expected out of all this. Ramsey, my simple view is this was pure ego on Tim Sweeney's part. He thought he was going to be the leader of a crusade, that the people were going to get behind him, and he massively miscalculated. And frankly, he didn't have his business in mind. It was really poor business judgment, if you ask me. Greg says, doesn't Apple have a claim they are blocking Epic while the case is on appeal? Doesn't Apple have a claim they are blocking Epic?
They probably do, I'm sure.
Greg's supporting Apple preventing Fortnite on the App Store because while it goes through appeal, nothing's officially decided, so they can continue to bar them from the platform, which is absolutely right. And kind of what Jeff said is poor optics and poor sportsmanship, I suppose. And what kind of the rest of us, or not the rest, but Lindsay, Paul, and I spoke to was, hey, they already lost, or rather Fortnite's attempt to smear them already lost with the 1984
it's war.
Campaign. So
did Tim think it wasn't going to get messy? Like, you started a war. What did you think was going to happen? It was going to be neat and polite?
Apple doesn't have a lot of, it's right. Not just war, it's strategy. And you play the cards that you're kind of forced to play. And that's one of their cards that they can play. And I don't know, Apple, or rather Fortnite, like you said, kind of lost. We see that in the viewership and in the numbers, right? As soon as they were pulled from the App Store, Fortnite went down. Their reign of terror stopped, right? Other games took the spotlight. It made room for Call of Duty. It made room for Roblox and Minecraft, right, to come back. So, and that was really, we all think, because they lost their, 30-40% of their users that were on iOS. It's massive. You can't sustain that. 10% would be a huge hit.
Well, let me ask the tough question.
What we're arguing here, we're arguing.
No, I know.
Did Apple now make a blunder? I think we all agree that Epic kind of shot themselves in the foot. Epic lost here. I think we all agree with that. It was more, did Apple make a mistake now with what they've done?
I think Apple had to send that message.
To be honest, I read Tim Sweeney's tweet as a little whiny.
But he's been whiny the whole time.
Yeah, it just hasn't, the Braveheart quote picture thing. I just don't think that he absolutely could have made a case in the court of public opinion and never even brought it into the legal side that I think could have been very persuasive, but he chose not to do that. And it's clearly coming back to not work. And I don't think that this behavior on the part of Apple is anything other than fair based on the ruling that was made in an extremely liberal state by an extremely liberal judge who has made clear that she has negative opinions of big tech. So we're talking about Apple getting a win in an environment where it probably shouldn't have, or where people really didn't think it was going to, because the judge was so harsh. So I just can't see, I can't see any moves that Epic made thus far as being beneficial. And I'm not a huge fan of Apple's practices, but I can't say that any of them are even bad or out of bounds.
100% agree. And it's also just funny. Like, of all things to take on, of every company you could potentially smear, you go after the most admired company on the planet, right? Like the one whose users have more admiration and love for than literally any other company on the planet. Talk about the worst possible target to go after. He's just very, 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 very bad judgment. Very bad judgment. And I guess my question for you guys is, Epic's going to have to raise another financing round if they don't go public. Who here thinks that there won't be an increase in the valuation, or at least not a significant one? Potentially maybe even a down round. Jeff, you have thoughts on this?
I think it'll probably be, all the public stocks have cooled off a bit, so you could see it be just a small increase. I mean, they went up massively right from their round previously, so maybe it would be a smaller increase. They'll probably will go public next. I think there'd still be a ton of demand. I don't know.
Ramsey, I had a question here. Why do you think no one will use the third-party payment system? Ramsey, we had talked about this on a previous live stream, so I'll just summarize my view really quickly. The average iOS user is my mom, right? And if she has to, futz with a different payment system, something that doesn't just require a simple click or a tap or whatever, and if she has issues, who does she call? Companies will have to have customer support people to service. They'll have to have billing. They'll have to have all kinds of infrastructure to support direct billing of the customer. And it will become a nightmare for most. It will become a nightmare for most customers. And I think most will just say, we'd rather pay Apple their cut and not have to deal with that. I just think it's too much friction, and most will realize it makes a lot more sense to just pay Apple.
Apple's big selling point too is its privacy. So all they have to say is, we keep your transactions private and secure. Don't use those other ones. It's scary. The end.
This is a good segue into sort of this next story, and this has become a recurring theme. But I thought this was an interesting extension of a conversation we had last week around China, and here the headline is, China's gaming body to bar local games on foreign platforms. So this is the newest sort of regulatory shot that China is taking. But basically, what's happening here is the move is trying to prevent companies from publishing, Chinese companies from publishing their games on foreign platforms. So in other words, if you're a Chinese game publisher, you will no longer be able to put your game, for example, on Steam, or iOS, or some of the other foreign platforms. So basically, if you're a Chinese game developer, you can only use domestic platforms to distribute your game. And the view here is that if you allow your game on Steam, for example, players in China, miners in China, will be able to use that as a potential workaround to still play the game. That is at least the reasoning that's being given. Any thoughts on the impact of this one, guys? Because this is a bit different, right? This has an impact here in some ways more than any of the other regulations.
Well, it's only local games, right? Or is it any game? It wouldn't be like, hey, Tencent can't have League of Legends in the US. It would be like they can't have Honor, whatever their Chinese version, in the US.
One of the agreement was signed by the China Game Publishers Association, and it included Tencent, NetEase. So, if Tencent's a signatory to this, then they would be beholden to that, you would think.
But is it only local versions of the game kind of thing?
It's what they call domestic games. How they define that, I don't know.
Sorry, wait, are they force funneling your access to these games? Is that in essence what's happening here? They're forcing you away from Steam and through their domestic outlets.
Yes, they're not allowing, but they won't even allow these companies to publish the games on things like Steam. So it won't be available on Steam at all, not to anyone. Lindsay, you're giving me a face here.
We're all thinking.
But look, hold on. Can I just? I saw this as the first piece of Chinese regulation that I actually thought was really good, and here's why. Right, the view on Steam, at least for years, especially in the CS:GO community, was there's this whole movement around having Chinese players geofenced, because there's such a high proportion of cheaters among Chinese players that people hated queuing into games of CSGO with players who were coming from China. And so the idea was only let Chinese players queue with other Chinese players. Now, Chinese players won't be able to queue at all. So is that a win for North American gaming? Is that will you have 10,000 fewer like Chinese sketchy apps on the Apple App Store? I don't know. Is there any good here in this? I'm trying to. No one has thoughts. No one has opinions.
No, I'm just processing it. It's a lot to like unpack. I think Jimmy is right. What's happening here is it's a forced funnel through domestic platforms. The net benefit of that is domestic distribution platforms will be more popular because they will have more exclusive content. I'm not sure how much. What I'm just not sure about is how much distribution was already taking place on foreign versus domestic platforms for these games. True. I just am not knowledgeable enough in that market to know how much of a shift that is. If it's a significant shift, then, obviously it has a bit. This could be a policy that is already nominally in effect because most domestic games were published on domestic distribution.
William, I think it's more of a defensive move. One, it shows you that this commission is really serious because they're now closing a loophole, right? It's not necessarily what percentage was distributed previously. It's like this was the exact loophole that every 15-year-old was going to say, "Oh, those idiots! I'll just download it on Steam." Like they'll never know. And now they're closed that loophole. So that's, I think, more of what's going on here. So it shows you me that they're actually serious about this, which is a bit scary. I just wonder, like, who at Tencent or one of these companies like pissed off someone in the government. Like, they need to get there and pay them off or do something because this is like not good. This is bad. As a Tencent shareholder, I am not doing good.
Lindsay, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Lindsay, please.
Oh no, I didn't have anything. I was where William was, like trying to figure out all the implications of this, but I don't know. Yeah. Jeff, like, who did piss off the CCP? Like, what is happening over there? I think I woke up and chose violence against gaming.
Make some better like propaganda games or something. Like, do something. Get this, get this shit back on track.
It does seem to be spiraling, that's for sure. Let me read some comments here. Eduardo says, I think it was bad for Apple to lose and set precedents, but had to send a message. There was no other option. Bad for Epic also at the end. Everybody loses. As is the case in most wars, very, very often everybody loses, right? There's death on both sides. And that's a very true statement here, but I agree that they had to send a message. Owen says, evening, everyone. I made it. Owen, welcome. So great to have you. Greg says, how long till we get a decentralized gaming network to get around the Great Chinese Wall? I mean, that is the promise of these crypto and decentralized networks and blockchains and God knows what, except the Chinese government has also said we're banning all of that too. So
what's the meme where like Bitcoin fixes this? This is that meme.
I don't know if Bitcoin fixes this, but I don't know, Greg. I know you have a lot of insight into that space, and I'm curious if anyone you think is looking at that, right? Is there anyone sort of trying to figure out how do we work around this long term? Matt says, happy to be back. Matt, welcome. I don't know if you guys don't have thoughts. I'll move on. We got other stories here.
Don't know enough.
We'll probably cover it. Yeah. I think more will come out. I want to see how it plugs into my pay to play theory, right? Where next thing is going to happen are these devs are going to just pay the government to get access, but we still need more data for me to flesh that out. So yeah, let's go.
I just before we move on, just a quick word, guys. This live stream is very generously supported by YouGov. If you guys are looking for incredibly accurate and actionable data on gamers, games, esports, the fans, all the things around this ecosystem, there is really no better partner in the world than YouGov. They have incredible data. It's incredibly actionable. We've shown it a million times on this podcast how it can clarify decision making. So if you're a brand, if you're watching, if you're working in and around the space, go check out yougov.com/gaming-esports. There's a bunch of free reports there, but you can also reach out to me or to Jimmy directly. We can connect you with the folks at YouGov if you're looking for data around the esports and gaming space. And they've got some pretty amazing people there that can help out, and we will connect you. So Go check them out, yougov.com/gaming-esports. I put it in the chat, but please feel free to reach out directly. Matt says, I want to hear about the gamer beds. Matt, we're not talking about the gamer beds.
No.
I'm shocked we're not talking about the gamer beds.
Can I add one update for chat that might be interested if you've been listening this whole time? I started at 650-ish in New World. I am now 49. So
oh, there you go. We better wrap this up
Guys,
quick.
we gotta end this. It's serious. Like,
no,
when
I have a
pops, Jimmy. You know you have to go.
I have a couple of fun stories.
No, New World Q.
This one's from Riot, because we mentioned Riot. Riot premieres World's 2021 official song "Burn It All Down," and it's basically a music video and original song that they've done for the League of Legends World Championship, as they do every year. My question to you guys is, why is no one copying this like aggressively? It seems to work every year. People love it. The videos are fun. The songs are catchy. Like, you would think Overwatch, with all their struggles, could easily do this every year, and yet doesn't. Why? William?
This is hard to do. Like, I just like, you would think it's easy to make a hit song with a flashy music video, and because but it turns out it's not, guys. There are like many major artists who get one and that's it. It's tough to do. I am surprised we haven't seen other brands try, right, and not succeed, because I think even that, it's a big reach. Again, like, it's hard enough to make a great game. To go launch a music business alongside that, only a publisher that is thinking about their brands as a media property and not as a game makes that decision. And Riot is clearly in that camp. Many other publishers, which isn't wrong. I'm not faulting those other publishers. I think it's a valid approach to development, but I think you have to be treating your brand like a media property to be making these strategic decisions.
How do they make money on this? Do they sell the song, or just views on?
I think
what's
it's
the
just
monetization?
I don't think there is monetization around it, which is also maybe an interesting question, right? It's literally just to create hype for League of Legends. I'm guessing it's a cost center, right? Like this costs them money. They're not making money from this.
I guess maybe the fear, the reason why people don't do it is maybe because it's so unique and it's been done so well by Riot that maybe it's either an arrogance or / a self-awareness from these other studios of being like, if we do this and we don't do it really, really well, it's going to be a lot worse than us doing it. So that might be why, like, someone may propose it and be like, hey, Riot's doing this cool thing, we should do it. And then, like, the boss is like, do you know anything about making a music video? Not really. It could be cool, though. Do you? Nope. Yeah, we're not doing it.
No, so no one wants.
Like, I'm sorry.
Can you imagine if your hit song is bad? The meme, like, if it's like, the memes will last for years. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Jimmy, we got to call Clinton Sparks. We got to do a Business of Esports music video. I'm convinced we can do it right. In his words, we can make something dope. I don't know.
Why stop there? I want him on the soundboards with all the special juiced effects and things. Like, just go all out.
Ramsey says they wrote a song about the Chinese government. That is hilarious, because the song's called "Burn It All Down."
Their new theme song. Perfect. Yeah.
Maybe there's a hidden message there. Owen says, off-topic question: have you guys discussed Epic adding new regions to RLCS? Owen, have not. If you have a story or something, you can link us. We can take a look, but did not discuss it. In fact, I didn't even see that. Okay, I have two stories here back to back here, guys, that are related.
but first, the New World Q update, Jimmy. Where are you?
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm 12. All right, guys. I'm gonna see you. No, I'm kidding. might lose my spot, but we'll see.
You just got to move every 5 minutes.
They're moving quickly.
Two stories back to back connected. This one, Vision, I hate the spelling, Ventures launches $30 million gaming fund. The gist of it here is they're launching a $30 million fund that will be focused on what they call the rapidly growing field of blockchain-based gaming, which I'm not sure I still, to this day, really fully understand, but they're focused on that. And then this sort of funny story next to it, which was NFT game steals artwork, gets called out, deletes account. And the subheadline here is the most like poignant, I think. It was NFTs are one big scam, and this game's theft is a classic example. So basically, they were an NFT game, a blockchain-based game, the same that Vision is investing in. It was trying to sell 10,000 NFTs, but all this artwork was basically just ripped off and stolen from some other game. And so the in this article, I want to read the quote here. It was really good. Hang on. It said, NFTs are an environmental disaster and an enormous scam. And perhaps the funniest thing about their persistence is how little effort purveyors of this modern snake oil put into it. It says the game's creators decided to just straight up steal a piece of key art from this other game called Wildfire. And the irony, obviously, is that this is supposed to prevent, right? Like NFTs are fundamentally certificates of authenticity. It's supposed to prevent this kind of theft, yet it's, according to this author, quite rampant. Is two questions here. One, and I don't want to, bash blockchain-based games or anything, but like, is the Vision Ventures model, you think, too specific, right? Like, who here feels like there's enough opportunity around blockchain-based gaming that it would warrant its own venture fund focused only on that?
It probably needs some specialization because, as you rightly point out, like blockchain is difficult to understand.
True.
and like,
True.
and it's also
be a
probably
venture fund and hire soone who knows about blockchain. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And it's also probably an investment class because it's blockchain really, and hence probably crypto related that people might not want exposure to. But the bigger thing for me is I just think if you're going to be investing in games, you need to have the flexibility to invest in games, right? Plain and simple. You know what I mean? I think in general, this is a limiting factor. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it works, but I can't see tons of funds cropping up with this specialization because I think it's hard enough to pick games that succeed,
Has anyone here, I'm curious, we're five of us here. Has anyone tried any of these blockchain-based games? I'm curious if anyone in chat has. Like, I've asked a few people this question. Anecdotally, not a single person, and I'm talking about some of the most hardcore, like, when I say hardcore, meaning they'll play hours and hours every day. They'll game all the time, trying all kinds of new games. Not a single person I've asked has ever played a blockchain-based game. Does anyone think that maybe it's a little bit just of a buzzword and, that the true sort of intersection between these gaming and blockchain is not been figured out yet?
I mean, yes, to answer your question in a short way. I mean, I think blockchain is going to be a massive theme in gaming in the future. I'm just not convinced that I think it's just a mechanic within gaming and a way to have ownership within gaming. I don't really understand why this has to be its own class of games, right? I think the key has to be a good game first, and then it can have forms of blockchain and ownership and good exchange and stuff like that, which is important and I think will be a huge theme moving forward. But to me, a lot of these pay to earn and blockchain games just really scream of a Ponzi scheme. I mean, it's very much like you're sitting there farming this stuff and hoping that someone's going to buy it and it's going to be worth more in the future than what you're putting in for it. And I heard an interesting anecdote on a different podcast that was talking about Axie Infinity, which is far and away probably the most successful blockchain game. It's done really well. And it was a quote, and I might butcher it. It was from the founder or one of the executives at Axie Infinity. And he was talking, or whatever company owns that game. He was saying basically the price of these things will continue to go up so long as more new people are joining the game than there are people in the game farming for it. And it was like, wait, isn't that like literally the definition of a pyramid scheme? So like, as long as there's more people entering the game than there are in the game, like it will continue to increase in value. So yeah, I thought that was a bit interesting. I think on the way up, that's great. But on the way back down, these things can have, they take the stairs up and the elevator down. And if the only thing that's good about your game is that you can farm and basically become an indentured servant sitting there paying pay to earn, as soon as that currency starts dropping, it's a death spiral, because nobody's actually there to enjoy your game. They're there to basically work. And as soon as it's not worth it, they're going to move on to the next game that's offering them slightly better currency or slightly better wages, if you will. And to me, that's a bit dystopian, and it's not really gaming. It's a weird form of like digital. I don't want to say digital slavery. I think that's a bit inflammatory, but it's like digital work, which I don't know. It's a bit. It feels wrong. All of it feels a bit weird to me.
I love that take, Jeff, and I agree completely. The interesting part is, when you have a venture fund like this, and $30 million, let's be honest, is a small fund, right? Like that is, by any metric in any country, a small venture fund. Potentially, it can go two ways, right? They could become a great filter. In other words, right, because they have very specific expertise, they filter out all the Ponzi schemes and the pyramid schemes and the scams and, the unsavory characters, and only the companies they invest in really, have value in the space because people trust that they've filtered out all the noise. Or they could end up encouraging unknowingly, right, some of these scams to be even bigger or more successful than they otherwise would have been, right? Fundamentally, like if they invest in something, again, unknowingly, that ends up being a pyramid scheme, they potentially have driven a lot of other money or a lot of other attention to that. And so in some ways, I think this could go both ways with this venture fund, and also why I thought it was interesting to see this pop up for the first time, because anytime you have a fund like this with such a very specific specialization, it's either a signal, right? Like it's either, hey, they're going to be the signal for the good companies, or potentially they're going to be a catalyst for more disaster. And so it'll be interesting to see sort of how it plays out. I thought, Lindsay, I don't know if you had any thoughts, or Jimmy, or we can move on.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get
Jeff
to Owen's question also. So let me just read Owen's question here before we move on to anything else. Actually, let me read Sean's comment because it's on the same topic. There's definitely a movement right now for blockchain gaming, especially with the boom of NFTs. No question. If you see the amount of stories I see every day around this, it's massive, the amount of interest. So Owen says here, still relating to RLCS, and I want you guys to chime in on this because this is something I don't know as much about. They're giving the ability to orgs who have sponsorships to add them to each team member's car. Thoughts on why no one else is doing this? So I didn't know this. So for Rocket League, what you're saying is if orgs have a sponsor, so like Pepsi, they can add in-game Pepsi's logo to their cars?
Like NASCAR kind of thing?
I mean, that's pretty cool. I feel
That's
like
fun.
a good question here. Why is no one else doing this? Right? Like, why isn't
No other. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the obvious. No other game has cars that you could just throw logos on, but
you could put
could do
jerseys
that.
up
There are other games you could do it in, but some games it doesn't necessarily fit as well. It breaks sort of the immersion of the game. I think with cars, it works a bit better.
I mean,
Overwatch League should do it.
they could do it, right? Valorant could do it. Why can't you have a cool branded skin? You could for your team members. I mean, Overwatch League did do custom skins for Overwatch League. They did home and away skins. Like, how hard is it to throw a logo on there?
Put a T-Mobile skin in there. Someone gets to wear the fuchsia.
But there's a good question here. And William, I don't know if you have thoughts on this. You have good experience with Rocket League. Like, why are they the only ones doing this? Why is no one else doing this?
Unfortunately, this is a level of proximity to team operations I don't really have view into. But I would say it seems like a good idea. I don't know why. I agree. I don't know why more people aren't doing it unless it comes down to, well, I don't know. I actually don't know. It's interesting. I really wish I had more thoughts on this. I just don't on this one. I'm going to do a little bit more digging and come back with an opinion on it. But I don't want to comment hastily on this.
I mean, they clearly need dev support for this, right? Which isn't that hard
I was
to
gonna
get.
say that.
Like you said, we've seen Call of Duty, for example, came out with skins for all the COD teams where you can buy your Atlanta FaZe, jersey, rep your player, in that. But still, you need dev support. I think it speaks more towards just like being genuine. Esports fans want that experience, or rather, will call you out if you provide or if you undermine that experience and you sell out in that kind of way. So like you guys mentioned, with NASCAR, natural fit to see these on cars. And same thing with like 2K and Madden. A lot of those jerseys already have advertisement on them. The court already has advertisement on the court, on the side FIFA, on the side of the pitch. So it makes sense, or it's already being done in some areas where that's part of the brand, it's part of the esport, it's part of the underlying traditional sport. But if you were to just start throwing up billboards in Fortnite, or what have you, you might make the audience, or you might make your users unhappy, and it might be seen as a petty cash grab when they're already being activated in a lot of other ways that are working, right? Like YouGov insights that we've offered on previous shows, showing or demonstrating that the sponsorship placement is resonating, that fans are recalling them after they log off, other metrics of that nature. So I don't think it's a lack of dev support, even though that is required. I think it's really what brands or what titles pairs well with what the audience expects. And, Paul, you play F1, right? Did the cars in the F1 game have the same sponsorships that the actual team has? Where if I'm driving, so I think the next step, I don't know if that's activating, if that's, for example, Red Bull. I mean, name one of the Red Bull sponsors, right? If that's them activating them apart from, if that's a benefit that they get from sponsoring the F1 car, that they also happen to be in the F1 video game, or if they're like, hey, we don't have to put your sponsorship in the video game, but we'll sell it to you if you want to have your branding consistent. I don't know what that discussion looks like, but that would be the place to do it, in an area where you expect to see the sponsorship, so you're not going to ruffle too many feathers.
I think that's one theory. I think where my head's at on this, Owen, is it's a business problem fundamentally, right? And it's a management problem fundamentally. If you look at NASCAR, right? NASCAR, these teams are fundamentally sales organizations, right? They're there to sell sponsorship. They sell a lot of sponsors. And if they sell, Tide next week, well, it takes one guy to like slap the Tide sticker on the car, right? It's not that complicated. With gaming, I think it requires so much more interaction between what are probably siloed groups within these organizations, right? So to do, someone who sells a sponsorship now has to go to a development team and say, hey guys, right? Like all you developers, you guys need to build this into the game. That requires someone to design the new, the new texture. That requires testing of the texture to make sure it appears correctly when the character's moving or the car's moving, whatever, right? Like the amount of work involved to embed something in a game that's new or different requires not just work and effort, but it requires interaction between groups that may not usually interact. And I think that's why it's hard, and that's why you don't see it that often. But I suspect we will see it more often. I do think there's a lot of friction because of the siloed nature of these groups. Developers aren't talking to the salespeople every day. And that's just the reality of being in that gaming world. So that's my take on that. Let's see. Do we have time for one more?
I don't know. What's the new world queue, Jimmy?
Wait, ask Jimmy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely not in it right now.
I mean, I'm more just worried that the last story I have is too much of a rabbit hole, and it's about Netflix buying their first gaming studio. Who here wants to talk about that?
That's a huge one.
Wait, why don't we do like rapid fire takes though?
Okay, let's do rapid fire takes.
That's like 40 minutes, so we have to do it again next time. Like let's park. It's
gonna be old news then.
And yeah, but like it's big. I don't know.
All right, everyone
Owen
has
says
10 seconds.
So why do you see Epic Games being so bullish on it? If it's difficult, I believe you, but just curious.
Well, Epic is a bunch of broke boys now that Fortnite isn't on.
No, I mean, Owen, I just want to be clear. I think it's a great idea. And if you have the ability to do it within your organization, I absolutely think more companies should be doing it. I think Overwatch should be doing it. I think Valorant should be doing it. Like, I don't see why any of these big esports aren't doing it. Epic is structured in a way that they're able to do it, and good on them. I think not every company is probably structured in such a way that it's that easy. But over time, that will change. So call it Epic just being a bit ahead of the curve. And I think it's partly because they're so good at doing new, fresh content on the regular that adding in another logo is not that far from their existing process with anything they do. So, all right, let me bring this up here, and we'll do rapid fire here. So everyone's going to have, I'm going to time it. Everyone's going to have 1 minute. Okay.
1 minute. That's all.
That's not rapid fire, dude. That's
well,
like
you can't have a
seconds.
take in 10 seconds, guys. All
I
right.
can have it. Juice can have a take.
I need
Juice,
10
that's
seconds
the
for
take.
my take, so I can't have it. in 10 seconds.
All right. So here's the story. Netflix buys first video game studio, rolls out mobile games. So Netflix has bought video game creator Night School Studio. They've rolled out 5 mobile games in select European markets. Night School Studios is best known for Oxenfree, a game I haven't played. I don't know if you guys know the game, but it's a supernatural teen thriller with an eerie soundtrack. The studio also has games on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. And all of this, by the way, hold on, the prophet was right who called this, included with your Netflix membership, so at no additional cost. It's being right never gets tiring.
Doesn't it though?
Well, because it's like they don't. Of course, they're going to include it with oxen free. Nobody on Netflix is going to pay extra. Oh, like extra $3 a month to play oxen free.
It's true.
Okay,
Like
was that your take, Jeff?
Yeah, my take is it's too small. I mean, I get they're doing incrementalism, but they need a big splash. And I won't get excited about Netflix and gaming until they make a big splash. Like I said, nobody is sticking around Netflix and subscribing longer or paying extra to play oxen free or a couple of mobile games. This is nothing. This is not it. If it wasn't Netflix, we wouldn't even be covering this story.
Okay, here's my hot take, Counter Jeff, but they're curious about the adoption rate. That's why they're being smart in testing. They're not looking for incremental purchase right now. They're looking for what % of their user base adopts. This is a great move. They should do more of it. It's obviously a first step. I'd like to see more steps up this staircase.
Love it. So good.
Lindsay?
Lindsay?
Or me? Yeah, Lindsay.
Yeah. First step, it's good. I'm more excited to see when their games partner with their content and what that looks like from a user experience perspective. So I'm kind of neutral towards this one.
That means they have to go buy CD Projekt Red, right? Like to make a Witcher sort of, tie in.
So fun. I mean,
Jimmy?
Yeah, I remember a few years ago when Netflix basically said their competitor was Fortnite. It wasn't other streaming services. I'm surprised it took them so long to compete and get in here. I'm curious why they chose Europe instead of Latin America or Southeast Asia, where I think would have, if you're going mobile, would have some pretty strong markets. But I am with Jeff in that they need to make a much bigger play here. I get your point, William and Lindsay, but it's been a long time. Like, this isn't like, oh, is this esports thing sticking around? Like, go all in. Let's go. Do something.
Right.
So
Netflix
that's how I
shouldn't
feel
have to
about
figure
it.
out if gaming is popular. It's popular.
Right.
They should go all in.
Right.
What? So one last question, and you only get one word or whatever, like 2 or 3 words, but no more than like 3 words. Who do they buy next? Predictions. Lindsay, let's just go around.
Activision Blizzard. I have no idea.
You get
William?
it cheap.
CDPR.
Interesting. I think that I agree with that one. I think that's a good one. Jeff?
CDPR is probably the easy answer, but yeah.
Jimmy?
I'm drawing a blank on the name, but one of those, the ones that do like the story-based games, not like an action, like where you kind of watch, swipe here to remove the tiers. I think they buy one of those devs.
Yeah.
It's funny because actually the people who made Detroit Becoming Human, which is kind of like that story. Supposedly the rumor is they're making a Star Wars game. That's the rumor. Which you may get a just swipe to wipe away the tears kind of Star Wars game. I'm curious in the chat before we wrap up here, what you guys think, who you guys think is the next, potentially to be acquired by Netflix. But it is definitely a big move. I'm sure we'll come back to this topic. I know we didn't do it justice here, but I know we will come back to it. I just want to remind everyone before we wrap up, if you love the business of esports, definitely go check out businessofesports.shop. There's a lot of fun things. I highly recommend the Gamers Against Aim Assist t-shirt because no one likes aim assist if you're real gamers, and the socks, which are so cool and so much fun, which I highly recommend. And make sure, guys, follow us everywhere: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. We really appreciate the follows. Can I just do? I know it's just tradition. We have to do this before I wrap up, guys. What are we playing this week? Did anyone play anything fun other than Jimmy, who's playing right now at the moment?
Jimmy, it's so obvious you're playing right now because the way your eyes move is completely different.
Also, my mouth has been open for like 20 minutes, right? Like,
William, what have you been playing?
D2 relaunch.
Is it as good as you remember? Is it living up to the nostalgia?
No, it's not. It's a very good game, but it should have more modernization done for it. It's still worth a play for nostalgia and because there's a lot to like. Like, it's a brilliant game, but it needs to be modernized more. But that doesn't change the fact I still want to play it. So
cool, Jeff.
Nothing this week.
You're gonna buy New World and you're gonna try it, right?
Probably.
Lindsay.
Mobile games, the usual.
What mobile games?
I play like a puzzle game almost every day. Can't help myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jimmy, we know what you're playing.
all day.
Carlos says, I just want to read this. Does this mean Netflix gave up on the fight to cut down password sharing? That battle was as doomed as the war on drugs in Latin America. Unsurprisingly, drugs won. That war was doomed. I'm pretty sure they did give up on that. Because you don't hear about it at all anymore. It's a good question. Guys, on that note, reminder, podcast drops tomorrow. Great episode. Check it out. We do this live stream every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you, everyone who showed up. Thank you, everyone who participated. We love doing this live with you guys. It's so much fun. We really appreciate it. Please tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues about the live stream. Come back every week. And as always, we will see you guys next week.